It's very random, and I think those first few months I learned very quickly about, the farm. It was such an interesting experience because the farm work itself, I think that we were definitely mistreated and underpaid in my
Oh yeah,
personal.
we were.
And even when we tried to do things about that, like, I don't know if you remember when Matt
No.
called they called the guy from the Australia, like one of the newspapers or something, or a
The
union.
union.
Yeah, and he was saying like, okay, well, we can. Yeah, he said that we'll put it to the newspapers. We'll make a case about this, blah blah blah. But you guys will have to pay your union fees or something, and then we'll do this, blah blah blah. And it's like they make it so it's very hard as an immigrant worker, because they know that we need to do the work to extend our visas, which is the situation like we talked about before. Uh,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
so these people need to be there. They need to be working in these jobs. When you spend more time in Australia, you realize you can do other things. You don't have to do these farm jobs. But at the same time, the people that we were with a really amazing group of people,
Yeah,
relatively drama free, and it just you're there all day picking. And I remember that there were days that we spent picking together the whole day, just picking these rows of trees, and you're just talking all day or listening to music. You're outside. There are some really amazing parts of that experience.
definitely.
Especially,
Yeah,
and it is a physical job, and that was a really good change for me from working inside in an office 40 hours a week to being outside talking with people about life, and it was so beautiful. I remember, and I still think to this day, that in Tasmania we had the most beautiful drive to work that I've ever had. Even if some days we were driving 45 minutes in the morning, we were waking up at 5:30, 6 a.m. to go to this farm to work for the biggest farm in Tasmania, who were underpaying us. But still, we were there together, laughing and joking and picking and outside in the beautiful summer. Like, it was really bittersweet. Really, really
yeah,
bittersweet.
yeah, yeah. Definitely, definitely. That was I would say that that's as a recommendation to anyone that is listening, as a big, big change in your life experience, doing coming, coming from any city, a big city, small city, going into Australia, specifically in Tasmania, to spend a summer and do some farm work. It's definitely a life changing experience. Would you agree?
Yeah, million times over. And I think even if it doesn't matter how old you are, whether it's
Exactly.
someone who's just finished school at 18, or if it's someone who's right on the end of their visa, like they're turning 35, this is the first time in their life they're traveling.
If you think about the age of the workers doing this job, that is, I didn't think of that actually. Because look, so you were 19 doing
Yeah.
this job as a backpacker. I was 27 doing this job as a backpacker. There were backpackers that they were, 33, 34, 35.
Hmm.
And then there were locals doing this job being more than 40. So
James.
all these different ages, all together working literally in the same place, from 19 to 45.
Yeah.
That
No,
is something.
55. No, there were the guy the James that I'm thinking of. The guy who was he told me he hadn't left Tasmania in at that time. It was like 19 years. He hadn't been to mainland Australia. This guy had left home
19
when he
years.
was 14, 15, and he just left home and at that age and just started moving around and working on the go. And he hadn't even left that tiny island underneath Australia, Tasmania, for 19 years. He'd never left Australia, you know?
Wow.
And this guy just spends the year traveling around Tasmania, working the farms, working the seasons,
Yeah.
you know?
And then yeah, amazing, amazing. So then you went through the whole Australia experience. You travel around, you continue your journey until you got to the point that you decided 2022 July, you decided to leave.
Yeah.
So what was the next step in your head?
This is, I mean, there are lots of moving parts to that story, and I'm sure with time, I will share more of this story. But I think coming to the end of 2021, I had started to give it some thought. You know, with my sister gave birth in November 2021 to my niece, and I
Uh-huh.
was really excited to meet her. Obviously, you know,
Hmm.
as one is going to be when a new member of their family is born. So from that point, I started thinking, okay, you know, at that point, around the time of her birth, I'd saved around maybe $8,000, and I thought, okay, well, I need to save more. You know, I'm not comfortable leaving Australia with this much. One thing led to another, and 2 months later, I was back to zero. I was back to square one. I'd gone from I'd gone from all the way up North Queensland, flown from Cairns to Adelaide, started a job on the in the grain farm. Um, I stayed there for 2 weeks and then went back to Adelaide, went to Perth, was in Perth for 6 weeks, in quarantine for two of them. And then I started making my way back east because I had a job on a solar farm. So I had this job confirmed, and I drove from Perth to Adelaide in it was like 3 or 4 days or something, really fast. And everything just the plan that I had went wrong as soon as I crossed the border from Perth into South Australia, from WA into South Australia. The guy called me and he said, "Sorry, the job's been cancelled." You know,
Oof.
and I couldn't go back. I couldn't turn back and go back to WA. And this little part of Australia, a little part, is called the Nullarbor, and it's a very long, empty road that takes you from South Australia to WA. So okay, well, I have to keep moving. I went back to Adelaide, starting from zero. Started working in construction, earning really well, and then falling into a bad routine. Then I found myself in a relationship, and we went to Melbourne. When I was in Melbourne, I got COVID for the first time, so they took us to isolation. In this isolation, my friend called me and he said, "Bro, I just got called from the recruiter from the job that had been cancelled on the solar farm." And he was already in a solar farm in Queensland, so he didn't really care. So I call the recruiter. I say, "Simon, like, are
Get
you
me
looking
the
for someone?" He said, "Yeah, I was about to call you." I said, "Okay, well, I'm on it. You know, you give me the job, I'm there." So he said, "Okay, I'll do it." And then I was with my ex girlfriend. We went there together, and I stayed there for 2.5 months. Amazing job, money wise. You know, earning
job.
$50 an hour, working 6 hours a day, but being paid for eight. So I was earning $400 a day. You know, these are like the real, the dream jobs that you get in Australia. And
Hmm. Hmm.
after all of those years of working the shit jobs, being treated questionably, paid questionably, all that time, you know, eventually you get a good opportunity. So I was there. I worked hard for the 2.5 months of work that we had. Then I went back to Adelaide and worked for another couple of weeks in a construction job. And then yeah, I flew back from Melbourne in the end of July 2022.